Welcome to the GAB Talks by the Independent Press Award. I'm your hostess, Gabby Olzak. Today we will be chatting with author M. Timothy Murray, author of Prelude to War, Thumar Saga 3. Before becoming a writer, Timothy pursued many different careers. He studied math and science in college and is a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. Prequel is the third novel in the Thumar Saga. In addition to writing the Thumar novels, Tim has completed 40 short stories in varying degrees. He joins us from Nevada City, California, where he lives with his wife, Rana Lee Joseph, and their scrappy cat, Horley, in a house that he and his father built. That sounds like a book right there, Tim. I like that.
Yeah, it could be.
Greetings.
Yes,
Welcome.
yeah, building houses. I built houses before I built my own, but it was a unique situation where my wife had the credit and a paid off piece of property, and I knew how to build a house. So,
Wow, that's pretty special, though, to be in a house that you built yourself. I really admire that a lot. That's awesome.
the only problem is most of the time you have more house than money.
Don't we all? Absolutely. Definitely money pits, all of them. So, Tim, Prelude is the third saga in the Thumar series. The first one was somewhat of a love story, it seems. The second one, Time Paradox, involved time travel. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Prelude seems to have a more political angle. Summarize the overall theme of the sagas for me.
Well, Thumar, which is the first book, which is getting re-edited, and it's going to come out with a new cover soon.
Oh, great.
Well, depending on my publication, whether I can get picked up by a traditional publisher or I have to do it myself, depends on, it's going to determine the timeline. But it's an introduction to Thumar, the main characters, and what it's like to live on Thumar. It's not a utopian planet because society is based on Victorian principles. Such as there's no sex before marriage, and you have to have shadows, or
Chaperones.
someone, chaperones, yeah, and a lot of other things. It's a conservative society in some ways, but it's actually a more fair and accepting society than what we have here.
Oh no, I was going to say, I wanted to continue on that. What's so special about Thumar? What makes it unique?
Well, the people live, at this point in time, they live to be about 250 years old, and they're an enlightened society in comparison to a lot of others where women in minorities that are considered such on Earth are not so on Thumar. They're equal to anybody. You can go from sweeping the floors in the company to the president, just determined how much time and effort you put into your position in your career.
Wow.
It doesn't, you're not determined by whether you're highborn or lowborn, or whether you have an education from Harvard or whether you have an education from a community college. It's what do you put into your life you get rewarded for.
It sounds ideal. So what is the overall theme of the sagas, Tim? What would you say the overall theme is?
It's the adventures of Derak and Shesain and their friends.
The main protagonists, two of the main protagonists.
Yes. It's their journey through time and years and marriage and children and many changes that did come upon Thumar and its society, and some are hard and some are not.
What inspired you to create Thumar? I know that you're a big sci-fi fan. You said that you read a lot of sci-fi books. You always have. But other than that, what inspired you to create Thumar?
Well, I decided back in 1988 to write a book. And Thumar and its basic conception just popped into my brain. So
Wow, but you have a very creative brain.
I've been told that, yes. So anyhow, I started Thumar in 88. Then I stopped it all of a sudden, and there was this lull between 88 and 2012.
That's a big lull there.
Yeah, I was going through life lessons, you might say.
Okay. And it brought you back to Thumar.
Having moved several times, I lost a lot of valuable stuff, and everybody does, because things disappear when you move.
Definitely.
So Well, one thing I did, I was looking around my files one day and I saw that I had the original manuscript for Thumar.
Wow.
And I decided to get serious about it.
And then you
So
you started it in 2012 again. You restarted it, and then in fact it took you 5 years to get it published.
Well, I completed the novel in 6 months, the first draft,
Okay.
and I went through what I thought was sufficient editing, and I got on Create Space, and I picked a very boring cover, and then all of the things about the actual first book that got printed was so insufficient for the market. And my wife read some of the chapters, and she pointed out some very obvious mistakes that some were mine and some were some oddities that Word likes to pull off when they print off.
Mm-hmm.
Like a half a sentence was stuck on the end of a whole sentence.
So the editing process really extended the time frame. You finished it, but then the editing process seemed to take long, as it always does.
Yes, it does. And in my case, it's the lack of finances that determined how long it took.
Yeah, yeah. That happens too. But then it was published successfully in 2017, and then you seem to be on a roll after that, Tim.
Well, I had written Thumar, and shortly thereafter, I wrote the second book, Time Paradox. And shortly after that, I wrote Prelude to War, all before 2017.
That's pretty amazing.
But the other two manuscripts are just sitting in the background in their first draft phase. So after getting Thumar published, I went after and I edited and put out Time Paradox. Then after Time Paradox was out, I went after Prelude to War. It was called something else, but I split that manuscript in half because that manuscript was 1,000 pages.
Wow.
So I split it in half, and Prelude to War is the first half of the original book 3, and the fourth book is the second half.
Well, we'll get to that. So I see that you were quoted and you said, Thumar was not satisfied with being a one-book edition. It took on a life of its own. Those are your words, Tim. And it seems that way. So do the sagas need to be read in order? Because you said it is a journey between the two protagonists.
Well, Time Paradox could be read as a one-off.
Okay, that's good. And what about the other two?
Prelude to War could be read as a one-off itself, but you need to buy the fourth book because there's an obvious split in the action at the end of the book.
Okay.
It doesn't have the traditional ending, because when I usually end my books, I end them on a positive note. Everyone's happy, and they go to the Festival of the Lights and they have fun, and
that's my
it's a happy ending.
Yeah, I like that. I like a happy ending.
Whereas Prelude to War doesn't have a happy ending.
Okay, so that shifts a little bit. That shifts because I end Prelude to War and I begin the fourth book with the same character. Okay. Now, I have a question for you, Tim. What is the big what if in Prelude and the other sagas? The big what if? Yeah, what if? Like, what if this happened, or what if they did that? What is the what if theme in these books?
I never thought about that.
The big idea behind it. Like, what if something in Thumar were part of our universe? What would it be like?
Oh, what if? Well, yeah. That's interesting, because when I wrote the third book, I finished the third book before the 2016 elections.
Wow. Okay.
And in the third book, I have a politician who's very much Trumpish.
I was going to ask you about that.
So anyway, this senator, this particular senator is very much a Trump. In fact, he's very, very much Trump-like. Is that when he gets in a jam, he doubles down and does twice as much. Got him in the jam in the first place. Mm-hmm. And his connection with a syndicate agent who keeps pushing his hatred for the Endar family just makes for a real ugly situation in the end. Of course, everyone gets what they deserve.
Don't
But
no spoilers there. And
well, I'm not going to spoil it, but everyone gets what they deserve.
do you the little teaser is always good. Do you think a world like Thumar could ever exist? And is that a world that you would love to live in?
I could live in that because right off the top of my head, there are no homeless people on Thumar. In general, not to the extent that we have it here on Earth, because a person without a home could walk into a village, a town, go into the central market, and state that he's looking for work and a place to stay, and he will get many offers to work on someone's farm or in someone's factory or in someone's company and get a paid wage, living wage, have a place to stay, and have food to eat. That's all he has to do is ask, say that he's willing to work, and he's taken care of. So the only reason why you would have someone who would be considered truly homeless is because they purposely chose that.
Sounds like an ideal society, really. So tell us about the main protagonists. In all the three sagas, is there a protagonist that you connect with the most? And is that person based on anyone you know?
Well, it's not based on anyone I know. I suppose in the beginning I probably considered Derak and a horror Derak. Derak is what I would want to be an alter ego of, but he's developed far beyond that. His development is something beyond what I pictured in the beginning. You know, he goes from a seemingly regular human to, I will just say, has some special features about his DNA, which he learns about later on, and everyone else can learn about when they get to it, and it grows from there. But what's good about Derak is that his importance and his abilities grow in the three books, but he always fights to maintain his humanity and his grasp on being considerate and nice and someone who thinks in peaceful methods rather than wartime thoughts.
Are there any characters that you consider to be villains?
Oh, yes, the Orion Syndicate.
And what makes that so interesting?
Their task is what they do. One of the things they do is how they destroy systems, space systems and planets. Is they blow up suns, therefore causing the systems to go away with the sun. Or in the case of Thumar, we find out that there's certain astronomical phenomenon that comes with suns that blow up that actually can wipe life out on planets and entire solar systems.
So, Tim, why do you think that folks find science fiction to be so fascinating?
I would say in some cases it's an extension of daydreams in print. You know how people daydream? We all do it some point in time. Some people, science fiction is just a daydream in print. It's my daydream in print.
What is the most important element in a sci-fi novel? As a writer of 3 sci-fi novels now, what do you think is the most important aspect that any aspiring sci-fi novelist should include?
I think they should include, no matter how violent it gets or otherwise how the villains are, there should be a level of humanity and a level of levity as well. Because I also put in my books, I put in scenes that are light and funny that you can laugh at, so that there is a level of humanity when, let's just say, in the lull between the action, the protagonist and their friends have a chance to relax.
That's fantastic advice. Yeah, that's fantastic advice for aspiring authors. What's your favorite sci-fi book, Tim?
Some of my favorite books are, I like Dune. Dune's one of my favorites.
Okay. What do you like?
It's world building. It builds a world in such detail that you could actually picture being there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I had one of my first beta readers was a work for the police department, and he did CSI work. He actually did that work. And
Wow, that's interesting.
beta, and he read the book, and one of his statements was that he felt that if he saw the characters in a room, he could recognize them.
And I'm sure that's what a lot of your readers feel like about your book too, the Three Saga.
Yes, when you write a character, you need to write a character so that there's a reason that people like them, or there's a reason that people don't like them.
Yeah, for sure. And your main protagonist, Derak, is definitely likable. Like you said, somebody that you would want to aspire to be like. So, Tim, you also shared with us, and I didn't know this, that many sci-fi authors often begin their careers with short stories. And you're no different. In fact, you're a short story writer. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I got into short stories after the novels, but then I decided to write short stories, to keep the writing exercise going, right? Because they say writers should keep writing.
Good exercise.
Which is true.
Yeah, it is true.
Which is true. So I found that when my brain was working, I could write a complete short story in 1 or 2 sittings.
Wow.
So anyway, that's when I started. And as it ended up, I wasn't just stuck on sci-fi. Like I have an entire series of talking animal stories.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm working with a friend of mine to get published as an ebook at this point in time.
That sounds like it's perfect for an ebook, yeah.
And I've written science fiction short stories, and I've written a couple of horror type short stories, and I wrote one short story about the Last Supper, as it's titled.
Oh wow!
And what it's about is the end of the world, where the sun has some incredibly powerful chrono CMEs and basically destroys Earth's ability to keep life going. And so these are the last people. There's 4 people thrown together who would never get along in the first place if the world was normal, but because it was an abnormal situation and everyone is going to die, they just decided to say, forget this. I'm with these people. I'm accepting them the way they are. And I won't give away what goes on after that.
Well, spoilers.
It's good. It's a good ending. So it's like I write that and I have the talking animal stories, and then I have one where an astronaut is out on a deep space assignment and he wishes to be home for Christmas with his family. And he finds himself home with his family at Christmas for no reason at all.
All different genres with your short stories, not
Right.
by Thumar. That's great. And I understand that Thumar Saga 4 is complete. Saga 5 is in progress. Without spoilers, what can our listeners and your readers expect from those books?
Well, Saga 4 is the second part is a continuation of 3, in which the political intrigue and fighting continues on Thumar. The war continues. And what happens is it all comes to a conclusion where it's not all roses and honey for either side, because the good side gets hit real hard in the 4th book as well. So the war will end, and the conclusion of our rogue senator will happen, because he's going to complete or attempt to complete his takeover of the Thumarian government. And the 5th book is I introduced a giant raptor in book 2, Time Paradox, an eagle-like raptor with a 40-foot wingspan.
Wow.
And people are crazy, and Thumarians are crazy enough to ride these.
Wow.
His partners. And the 5th book is going to be about what I call the Sith, Cyth, Sith riders, in their society and some of their past history, and how they get along with modern Thumarian society, or try not to, shall we say, because any sight of one of these birds over a city would clear the city out.
Wow, those sound fascinating. So is that it after Saga 5 for the Thumar Sagas?
No, it's not.
It's not.
I haven't. It's not. No, because I've introduced all kinds of concepts I can go off of in this books 3 and 4, and one of them is an underwater novel. So it'll be an under the sea novel that takes place on and off Thumar.
Wow. And then Saga 5 has a lot of new things going on too.
Oh, it will. It'll have a lot of new things, but it's going to be mainly about the giant raptors and the people that ride them.
Sounds awesome.
And some of their past history, and so that what I'm trying to do, what my concept for the third book was to open up Thumar and part of its subcultures, so that people could delve into the history of Thumar even deeper. And as I delved into the subcultures, it just kept going and going and going until I hit 1,000 pages. So
crazy. How do you do it, Tim? It's pretty amazing, and it's impressive, I have to say. Sounds like you have a lot of fun doing it, though.
I do. Well, like any writer, there's times when I'm just like, I'm on fire and I just can't write fast enough. And then there's times when I'm wondering where it all went.
Yeah, I get that. So, Tim, where can folks find out more about you and the Thumar Sagas?
They can go to thumar1.com. I just this year had my website 100% updated, and for a while there was even regularly posted on and maintained, but I'm going to get back to that as soon as I get a few things in order, because I put in for some national level reviews for Prelude to War, so I want to get a few of those back before I update my website again. But it's pretty up to date.
It looks terrific, I have to say. Well, Tim, this was really fun. Thank you so much for joining us today. Looking forward to seeing Saga 4 and Saga 5. And it sounds like you've got a whole bunch already down the pike in your mind, ready to go. So we're really looking forward to that.
I have that and other novels that have nothing to do with Thumar.
Are they science fiction as well?
Yeah, one I'm working on is on the funny, what I consider the funny side, where a student who graduates from college before he goes off to medical school gets a job on a space station at the Lagrange 2 orbiting Earth. But this particular space station has two sides. It has the human side and it has a alien side. His first job is an assistant manager at an Ace Hardware store on the alien side of the space station. And the guy cannot get a date on Earth if he paid for it. But he goes to the alien side and he has to find off all these aliens.
Mr. Popular there.
Yeah, he's popular. There's reasons he's popular, but it's written in a way that where his best friend is a 3-foot ball that rolls on the ground with a single eye and a single mouth. It can move anywhere in the ball on the top.
Wow.
And floating octopuses and snakes and you name it. It gets weird, but it's light and it's funny.
So is this a work in progress, Tim?
Yeah. It's called Bucky's Bodacious Adventures.
Okay. All right. So we'll look forward to that. I didn't see information about that on your website because I'm assuming it is a work in progress, so not out there
yet. It's a work in progress, yeah.
All right. Sounds fantastic. Well, Tim, thanks so much for joining us today. We had a lot of fun. Look forward to your next novels. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Next time on the GAB Talks, we're going to be chatting with Shelley Frome, author of Shadow of the Gypsy. This is your hostess, Gabby Olzak. Until we meet again, keep on reading.